Hey, what's up guys? Michael here. So today's video, I'm going to cover my best salmon lures of 2024. Earlier in the year, about halfway through the year, about June or so, I did two separate videos covering my best spoons up to that point in the year and my best flasher fly combos up to that point in the year, about halfway through the year. And so now that the year's over, I'm going to cover out of everything that we ran for the back half of the year, including the stuff we ran for the first half, what were the ones that stood out from everything else, and gonna go through that with you in this video. And now this was true of me fishing, whether I was in my kayak fishing or on boat trips filming videos for Lake Michigan Angler, or just fun fishing with some buddies that would invite me out. So this is a combination of all of those. And this is in no particular order whatsoever, but I'm gonna start with the spoons. So when it comes to spoons, I think the one that really stood out for me and all of my fishing, again, across me fishing on the kayak or on the boat, was going to be the blue flounder from Moonshine. This guy right here just performed. It's to me just a reliable go-to, and it was consistent from the beginning of the year and including the back end of the year. That summer, midsummer, late summer period. The I'm sorry, not blue dolphin, but the blue flounder pounder here. It really didn't matter what you threw it on, 200 copper, 300 copper, off of a rigger. It just took fish very, very consistently. You could fish it throughout the entire day. So blue flounders on that list. I mentioned blue dolphin, and yes, this guy right here actually took my biggest fish of the year on the boat at 22 pounds. And it's a staple. It's a classic. This guy performed from early on in the year, and it was consistent through the rest of the year, you know, July, August, and such. We're talking about catching kings on this, coho, steelhead. It takes anything and everything that's out there. Specifically, running this off of a 7 to 10 color range or a 200, 300 copper. Personally, this was always my first go-to on a 7, 8, or 10 color. I just love it because for whatever reason, it catches those fish out of temp, you know, that are higher in the water column. That thermal's a little bit lower, 7 color, they'll come up and smack this. And I really like it off of lead core specifically, but we'll also throw it on coppers. And in the kayak, I'm fishing it straight clean off of my torpedo or on my lead cores. Again, 7 color, chef's kiss, love it on the 7 color. Okay, next on this list for best spoons of 2024 is going to be one from Mr. Chrome. Now, there were many that worked really well this year, and this was a breakout brand in our area, did really, really well, so shout out to Mr. Chrome. But the one that stood out for me personally above all the other ones that performed throughout the year is going to be the Aurora. And I don't have it to show you right now, but I'll try and put a picture here for you guys to see it if you're not familiar with what the spoon looks like. But once you see it, you can see that that's fish catching, right? Black, blue, green, all on one spoon. That thing took kings, and it was really, 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 I want to stress just how many kings it took. It seems to have grabbed the attention of kings. And when I say that, what I mean is like cohos didn't really eat it as much. It was definitely more of a king presentation that kings gravitated to. So that became, when we were going out specifically looking for kings, that went out. And fished that guy on the boat and a 300 copper. That was a real sweet spot for that lure. Really consistent, taking fish on the boat. And then fishing it off my kayak, I ran that guy straight off of a torpedo weight, about 50 feet back. Varied the depth here and there. But yeah, it took fish, man, and it was really cool to get a new brand, a new color out there and have that much success with it. And I think that's why I put that on my list for best, one of the best spoons for me this year, because it was pretty consistent. I really started fishing that spoon rather, right around late June. And so from June all the way through the end of August, it took fish very, very consistently. And so that is why it's on the list. And then finally, very controversial one. I love this one. Some people are going to hate it. Maybe you watching right now, hate it. You can't catch any fish on it. But that is going to be undoubtedly raspberry carbon from Moonshine. This guy right here, tried and true. This is always going out for me on every trip. Doesn't matter if we're doing a boat video, fun fishing on the boat, or if in the kayak fishing, I have this out. And even, if I'm on someone's boat, I think we all try to be respectful of their program and what they got going on. This guy has made believers out of people who really didn't ever want to give it a chance. And specifically, there was a day out this summer when we were out fun fishing. I think we were trying to shoot a video. Maybe it was fun fishing. Either way, we were out there, and it was an overcast, cloudy morning, and surprisingly, we weren't getting any bites off the top of the hill. Like, in about 100 feet of water, 80 to 100 feet of water, so nothing. And we continue this trend, and so eventually I asked the guys, hey, do you mind if I change, a rod out? And they're like, well, what do you want to put on? They kind of looked at me like, and I said, well, I want to put raspberry carbon out. It's overcast. This, to me, when I see these conditions, this is in the water without question. And they kind of scoffed at me like, all right. They said, go ahead. But it was like, there was like some hesitation with it. So I pulled a 300 copper, might have been 350, and put that thing out there. Not even 5 minutes, maybe even less than 3, honestly, king. And it took the next 6 fish when all the other rods were pretty quiet, if nothing was happening. That was the stud. And it smacked them. And raspberry carbon just does that for me. You fish it middle of the day, it takes kings. I run it off a lead core, 7 to 10 color, and a lead core off my kayak. If I'm on the boat, I really do like it off of a long line like a copper, or on a rigger. And it has just been consistent, took fish for me. I usually start fishing it right at the end of June, and the rest of the year, it just goes off. And really, this is maybe like the second year that spoons that have black on it have really done very, very well. Very, very well. And so raspberry carbon is one that if you haven't fished, give it a shot. And what I will say before we move on to the next portion of this video with the flashers is that you got to really give time to new lures. And I think that's an area that most anglers maybe don't really do. They say they do, but they don't really do, which is commit to trying a new lure and giving it a sufficient amount of time to do its thing in the water. We all hear of certain lures that people are using that are catching a ton of fish. They're showing pictures. You're like, man, they're killing it with this one lure. And then you say, well, I'll give it a shot. You put it out there, nothing happens, and you pull it, and you're like, it's junk, and you chuck it away. I'm a proponent of changing baits out fairly often, 20, 30 minutes. I'm changing a line, rotating it through the whole kind of spread. But I think that when you're trying something new, you got to give it more time than you normally would to just do its thing, get comfortable with it. I think the other aspect of that, when you're trying a new lure or color, is to ask those people, how are they running it? Where are they running it? And that can help you also try to put that in the right place. So, you might hear people catching a ton of fish on, like say, raspberry carbon, and you decide to just kind of throw it off of a dipsy or something like that. Well, most folks that are catching the fish off of this guy are actually running on a 300 copper or a 500 copper, whatever it is. My point is that you might not be running it in the same way that they're running it and having success. And so find out those details so that when you put it out, you're trying to emulate what they're doing, and the way that they're experiencing success with that lure, you want to kind of do the same. So just don't willy-nilly throw it out there without asking some further questions about how are you running it? Where is it at in the boat? Is it port, starboard side, long line, short line, whatever it is, and see if that makes a big difference in your success with new lures or new colors that you might not normally fish with. Now, that being said, let's move on to the flashers portion of this. And for me, again, there were 3 that were for sure studs this year. There's probably like a 4th honorable mention, but let me focus on the 3. Again, no particular order here, but we'll start off with White Megatron from Salmon Candy. That flasher was phenomenal this entire year. Fishing it from the spring coho run, while most folks were fishing double O Dodgers, stubbies, of course, baby spin doctors. I put out that White Megatron early in the season with those coho, and I was catching them. Those fish were not scared off by the bigger profile 8-inch blade. They weren't scared with a 4-inch fly on it. That thing continued to catch fish on my kayak off the downrigger, on boats on the downrigger, off of a dipsy, it just phenomenal year. So much so, as you may know, it was hard to find it and purchase it. It was unavailable here at Lake Michigan Angler. It was sold out multiple times throughout the year. That thing really took off. And this was the first year that, for me, it made me a believer. For many years prior, the white Megatron, the Megatron in general from Salmon Candy was something that the northern anglers, let's say north of Milwaukee, Sheboygan and such, really raved about. But down here, we just it didn't click. This is the first year, in my opinion, that clicked with our fish, and it was just great fishing with that white Megatron. Let's see how that performs next year. Things could change, but I would certainly, it's going to be out first come next season to catch some fish, and I suspect that it should do well again. Next, one that is a custom to the shop here is the Spin Doctor Custom Orange with yellow dots UV. Rob had these made up. This is like an OG classic that he wanted to bring back, and I see why. Anytime we get something new here, myself or Rob, we try to take it out and do some product testing, if you will, to really demonstrate to you like that the stuff works. That we're not just using something, not just trying to sell you on something that doesn't work. So we'll take it out, and I took it out first with me on the kayak. It was the spring coho run, and when I tell you that the bigger blade, the orange with yellow dots, absolutely smoked the coho. And listen, I get that in the spring it's hard to not smoke coho because they're just hitting anything that comes by them for the most part. But what I will say is I did notice that by running these bigger Spin Doctor here, this custom one again, I was running it with a 4-inch fly. On top of that, I was catching, on average, bigger size coho from what I was catching with a stubby fly or trolling a crank early in the season. I was catching better quality size coho with the bigger flasher, and specifically that color. And that guy fished and took fish all the way through June. I want to say maybe early July is when, and for no good reason, honestly, anytime I went out or was on the boat, I don't know why. In hindsight, I wish I would have kept fishing it through July and August. I don't see why I would have stopped fishing. But the reason why I'm putting it on this list is because it just absolutely smoked from, when did I start fishing? April all the way through June. Took a ton of fish. This was always getting dunked on my downrigger on my kayak, or if we were on the boat, we're putting it on the Dipsy. Rob and I did some videos, and I mean, we were just killing it. That thing is so good, and I think going into next year, I believe we're going to see more people with this guy out in the early spring. These fish are big enough. Sure, they'll eat a peanut fly, but I'm looking for better sizes. I'm going for going bigger, going home, and that one right there really spoke to that. Another flasher that was really great throughout the year, and I knew when I first saw it, it was going to be a good flasher, and that's going to be Mr. Chrome's Hailstorm. I don't have it with me right now. We don't have any in the shop that I can grab, but I'll show a picture of it here for those that are not familiar with it, and you'll see why exactly it's a fish catching flasher. It's a great design. You've got blue, you've got the green, UV, chef's kiss. It worked. Again, I fished that probably from about mid-May all the way through the rest of the year, and it took fish. And it was a good multi-species flasher. We were catching coho, catching kings, catching steelhead on it. Specifically on the kayak, running off the downrigger, on the boat, running off a Dipsy, or on the downrigger. And that's where it kind of lived, in those kind of spaces, whether it was on the kayak or on the boat. And it was great. That hailstorm really, really took a lot of fish. And I think it's going to be a staple in the coming years as more people discover it. It looks great, and really happy about giving that flasher a shot this year. Really, really did well. Of course, there are other ones that did well. Dragon Slayer, I guess we can mention that as well. That was a very consistent, tried and true Dragon Slayer. Also took fish. And those will be the ones that I would say were the most consistent, caught the most fish over the entire year. Sure, there were other ones that I had that, had moments, maybe periods of time where it was good for a few weeks or for a short period of time. But these lures that I covered here really, really, really were the most consistent throughout the entire year, caught the most fish, and that's why they're on my 2024 best salmon lures of the year list. Some other honorable mentions I'll quickly share are plugs. Plugs this year for me weren't as great as in previous years. What I will say is that this year I committed to a year-round plug program, and what I learned with plugs is that you can absolutely fish them throughout the year. I was fishing them as early as the spring coho run, and what I learned is downsizing really helped out a lot. So going with the size 4 plugs, and it's really seemed to be a early morning thing in that time period. So, setting lines, would put one out on a rigger, or would put one out on a lead core on my kayak. I put on a lead core. If we're on the boat, it would also go on a rigger, or it would go on a 200 copper. And what I noticed is that downsizing, going with just the classic Mother of Pearl Wonder Bread, very simple. That thing was by far the most consistent plug for the entire year. Took coho. We were getting big coho, wrecking that thing on the 200 copper on the boat. I was taking coho on that thing off of my lead core on the kayak. So and what I realized too, though, is right around after the sun is fully coming over the horizon, let's say 7:30 or something like that, 8 o'clock. After that period, I noticed that bite quickly ended. So it really seems like for the year-round plug thing, it was our early first thing in the morning up until the sun is out. Then we would just switch it back out as it got really quiet again. We would switch it back out to our flasher flies or spoons, and you'd pick back bites up that way. So, and then in the fall run, it wasn't all that great for kings overall. They were very, very tough this fall. And, I maybe caught one king off a plug, broke one off the bone black ladderback. That was probably the most consistent, and even then we're talking about just a handful of bites on it. They just weren't really responsive for me this year in with plugs, and that's why I don't have any plugs to mention as being my top for this season. And I know that's going to be a different case because we fished over on the Michigan side and the plugs were smacking them up. So I think a lot of it had to do with the water temperature. They just weren't as responsive, and they were responding better relative to plugs to reef runners. So just want to kind of briefly mention, honorable mention the plugs aspect of this and why they're not on here. And that to me is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, were the handful of lures that again were just lights out, the best for the year. And I would love to hear what were some of your best ones. Let us know down in the comments down below. I'd like to hear that. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon.